Kia ora, g'day, welcome back once again. Here, this time with a reaction to a 1984 documentary on the Australian Special Air Service Regiment called Battle for the Golden Road, or SASR, Battle for the Golden Road. So thank you very much to those that sent through the link on this one. I've skipped forward a little bit. You might see here it's at 2 minutes 22 seconds. There is a little bit of an intro and some other bits and pieces that happen at the start, but I figured I'll start it from here because it seems like this is when they're about to track these 101 servicemen that have applied to join the Australian Special Air Service Regiment. So if you're here for this one, thank you very much for your time. Let's jump in.
What you're about to see is 24 days in the lives of 101 servicemen as they endeavour to join the Australian SAS Regiment, filmed when it happened, as it happened. Some of these men will have joined the course for the wrong reasons, because of that mystique and glamour. But now this will all be stripped away, leaving only the will to win.
Anyway,
even if they have that quality, it will be the hardest personal battle they have ever experienced.
Sit easy, remove your headdress. Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to Northern and the 1 of 84 Special Air Service Regiment Selection Course. My name is Captain Mansell. I'm the Senior Instructor of Reinforcement Wing and together with my staff responsible for the conduct of the course. As the name implies, it is a selection course and not a teaching course. You will receive instruction in navigation, communications and first aid to ensure you all have the necessary knowledge to complete.
Standing by the lectern, I can see the guys are pretty tense. I remember when I did the course, I prepared myself for anything, but I was still really apprehensive. I'd spent the past 6 months preparing for the course by taking long runs, carrying bloody bricks in my packs by day, and by night sweating over past basic training. But there were still parts of the course which really caught me off guard. Looking along the row of faces, it's hard to tell who is prepared and who is not, but the next 24 days always tells. About now we introduce them to the directing staff, who they'll know very well by the end of the course. They'll be watching their every move and comparing notes by night. What they don't know is that while I'm giving the introduction, we've got our medics preparing a whole array of goodies. Then we get one of our star performers, Corporal Cole, to explain their use.
You have a sachet of kaolin powder. This is to be used for diarrhea. That's the big word on there. Anybody can't understand that? Scratch it out and put shits. It's the same thing.
Crack up. Australian humour, man. I've not seen this before. This is interesting. It's quite well, it's different, eh? Like obviously the technology isn't the same as what it was, and I suppose the videography or whatever the term is these days. But it's quite it's very olden day is probably the term that I'm thinking of or looking for, but rightly so. It's from back in 1984, so I'm not expecting a blockbuster or it to look as, I suppose, maybe as clean or as sharp as the Search for Warriors selection documentary, but this is still pretty cool nonetheless. Everybody's faces have been shown too, which is pretty surprising for the purposes of this documentary. I wonder if there'll be any stage where they blur out the faces of the candidates. Not sure. For diarrhea, that's the big word on there. Cross it out and replace it with SHITS.
In your rooms, you will find every odd person has got a bottle of Epidex. As he reads the label, it says sparkling antiacid, terrific for hangovers. But I promise you, you won't have a hangover. What did I give it to you for? Read the label a little further, and it has a 50% glucose solution. When some of you have completed long, lengthy runs in the evening, you'll find yourself pretty well exhausted. A cap full of this into your cup will just lift you out of the doldrums for a little while. You cannot live on this. It is not a sustaining magic fluid, because it also contains sodium bicarbonate, and that will give you the shits, and then you'll have to use the other powder.
Guys, I'd be cracking up too if I was listening to this briefing. We definitely didn't get or have any briefings like that during my selection in NZ or Australia. If we had, there more than likely would have been everybody chuckling away at that type of briefing. You get one thing. We didn't have anything like that either issued to us on selection in Australia with a bit of glucose. Mind you, maybe they should have, which might have caught a few of us out in terms of trying to take some to replace some or get some sort of boost, as he mentioned, and some of us might have taken too much of it, then having to resort to the other one and then losing all that strength that we would have just probably experienced for a little bit of time because we've thinking letting it all come out the other end.
John Mansell's second in command on the course is Wing Sergeant Major Graham Bremer. He takes up the story.
Morning one of the course, we get them up nice and early and get them on the road. This particular session, which is a physical training exercise, is designed to set the pace for the course. What we try to achieve here is to identify some people who have come on the course for perhaps the wrong reasons, the people who are not prepared to put in their best effort on morning one. Once we've identified those particular types of people, we can single them out later on to keep more of an eye on them.
Everyone on the course is expected to be at a high standard of physical fitness. 3 months ago, they received confirmation of being accepted into the course and were issued with a set of written instructions containing the suggested physical training program for them to follow.
I'm pretty sure that suggested physical training program is still in circulation somewhere. I know that there was a very old-looking SAS selection physical training program that was kicking around by the time I got to Australia. I never followed it or used it. I just went off what I had already done in NZ to prepare me for that. And I don't know of anybody personally that followed that that training program that went through selection or that I was on selection with in Australia. But there may have been. I'm pretty sure the vast majority, if not everybody, did their own type of training program and or possibly asked people that had already completed selection.
As every man is a volunteer, they're expected to arrive in prime condition. However, there are some that just won't have had time to carry out the intense physical preparation for the course. So the opening days are designed to build these people up to a standard to prepare them for the harder...
Apologies, that's what I should have said. Like, obviously they're up early hours in the morning, so clearly there's no big fancy lights shining on there. All we're really seeing is just shadows moving, going up and over obstacles, going across some ropes between, I'm guessing, a couple of other stations, and now this part here with regards to what they're doing, jumping and swinging across on the rope. It would have been cool to see if there was a way to make it lighter so that we could see, but oh well, it is what it is. I'm sure there'll be moments of
activities later on.
You didn't even get the rope. Try it again. All right, yeah, heard the splash. That's bloody unco is what that is. But funny though, there'd be plenty of moments where I and all teammates had a number of uncoordinated moments.
After the assault course, it's up and over the giant water pipe to the bellow of the PTI.
Okay, get the last few people in. Ready? Go!
the pipe after the first time is going to be slippery, and because of that, it then increases the student problem of getting over it. Then it becomes a difficult thing, and it also becomes a challenge at that particular time. As the dawn breaks and the light increases, we can tell who's been putting the effort in and who hasn't. It's fairly evident those who have are lathered in perspiration, unless, of course, they've tipped a bottle of water over themselves.
I often wonder whether we should really start the course like this. I remember when I did my course, it was really quite horrendous being out there on a cold, dark morning with big warrant officers yelling at me. And I consider myself to be quite a good endurance runner, and it really hurt that morning, and I was really wondering what I was doing on the course. And even later on, I've seen guys that I've played rugby with, and they're pretty tough fellas, actually dropping out of the run and spewing and gasping for air. What always brings me back to the fact that we should retain this activity as the start of the course is that, firstly, as Warrant Officer Brammer said, it sets the pace for the course. It lets the guys know that they are on the SAS selection course, and it's going to be a tough course, and they better measure up if they're going to make it. Secondly, when all the facts are in, it's generally those guys that dropped out at the start who don't make it at the end.
I really like the comments that he shared there in terms of it gives me, I've often wondered about the iterations of a selection course. And I've always had a gut feeling that, yep, things have been tweaked, things have been modified, adjusted, etc. Maybe things have been thrown in to make it just that little bit extra harder, or maybe things were removed because not necessarily to try to make it easier, but just through, I suppose, their learning and their observations over the years of what they felt was more beneficial than not. So hearing him speak about he's often thought that that's how they should start the selection. It just casts my mind back, and I think those that have watched The Search for Warriors get a bit of an idea, aside from rocking up on the bus, coming through the gates, getting issued with their weapon and that sort of thing, going through a kit inspection and all that sort of stuff where you strip down completely. Then they'll go through, check all your gear. Aside from that, once we got out to the training area, and I'm pretty sure we're out in the sort of Bindoon area, Bindoonia, the trucks or buses, I think it might have been the buses, stopped. We had our packs that were full. We had our base kit bags as well, which had all our gear in it, webbing, and obviously your weapon, and you've got to then hump all that stuff in to where we were. And I don't know how long or how far away we were from the actual initial base camp, for want of a better term, or training area. But it seemed like ages. It seemed like a long time. It was all completely new and unfamiliar to me. It was late at night. Had no idea how long we were going to be walking for. Some people had said it's about 20 kilometers. Some people said it was 30 kilometers. Some people said it was 10 kilometers, and everything in between. There was just some mumbling. Some people were asking me if I knew how long we were going to be going for. And I was like, when I could and when I thought it was safe, I just mumbled and said, bro, I've got no idea. I've just got to keep going. And that was it. So some memories come back listening to this guy speak about his recollection and from his selection. And he's right. That's what he's just mentioned there has been the same regardless of who you listen to speak about their selection courses, whether it's New Zealanders speaking about selection or Australians or British operators, probably mostly those three for me. And then from what I've seen in the American, when I've reacted to the Navy SEALs, you see it's not the big burly bodybuilder, superhero looking type people. It's the smaller, unassuming, leaner guys that tend to get through. And even to a degree, I don't know what it was like back in 1984, but to a degree, maybe even the lighter guys getting through. When I say light, probably I'm thinking somewhere between 70 to 85 kilos. and then anything above that, I'd consider the sort of heavier guys. I considered myself one of the heavier guys, being in the mid-90s, typically, but putting on a little bit of extra beef before NZ selection. And again, I didn't put on as much before the Australian one. So I think I mentioned it on another video. I was about 98 kilos on the by the time I kicked off on the Australian selection. Then that was probably only 3 or 4 kilos heavier than what I was normally, what I'd normally kick around at, which is roughly around what I kick around at now. Anywhere between 93 to 96 kilos is typically where I sit these days and have done for the longest time. But yeah, cool listening to this guy speak about it.
Northern Army Camp, 130 kilometres out of Perth, the capital city of Western Australia. It was built just prior to the Second World War to provide a base for the thousands of soldiers leaving Australia for active service. The huts are finished in corrugated iron, like ovens in summer, fridges in winter. These huts also house thousands of displaced persons from Northern Europe as refugees from the war poured into Australia to start a new life. After the first shattering workout, most students have downed a huge breakfast and are now ready to face anything as they assemble to march back to their huts.
And I've talked about this before too. That's one of the things that caught me off guard in the Australian selection was the amount of food that we got initially. So, and I've touched on that as well. So sort of for the first sort of 10 to 14 days, we were getting fed. I wasn't sure if this was a joke or what, or some sort of trick, but I saw everybody else eating, so I wasn't going to miss out. I was eating too.
The first casualty, Ranger Challen, is a few teeth short from a fall on the assault course. There is a minimum of spare time, a few minutes each day, and they're taken up with cleaning weapons. Everywhere, the click and rattle of bolts and magazines as SLRs are taken to pieces and painstakingly cleaned.
Poor old mate with a few missing teeth from the obstacle course. Oh man, shame. I'm sure the fellas that hassled him.
On this first morning in the huts that have seen nearly 50 years of service, the directing staff, or DS, make their rounds. They'll have every man under scrutiny at all times. Their own performance as teachers and assessors will be criticised by their senior officers. In about 20 days' time, these innocent-looking trailers, standing in a remote corner of the camp, will become instruments of torture.
Yeah. Likely during, when he said 20 days, so likely during Lucky Dip, which is the last phase. I wonder if they still call it, Happy Wander, the navigation phases and all that sort of stuff, Lucky Dip in that last phase. I wonder if they still have those same names for the portions of the selection, or whether that's something that...
Clotheslines sag under the first wash. It pays to keep smart. It also pays to learn the words of the regimental quick march, Happy Wanderer.
Oh man, it just brings back some memories. I can't remember all the words, but I remember the tune and then that laughing bit at the end. I remember thinking to myself, what the hell is this rubbish? That's what I thought. And mostly because, one, I can't sing, and two, I didn't think anybody that I was on selection with could sing, because we just all sounded terrible. So hearing these guys run around here, I remember we were handed words, we needed to learn them. Same with the Australian National Anthem, which I've spoken about, where one of the directing staff, I think he was a sergeant at the time, he was a sergeant or a corporal, Nick Rotherham anyway, nickname that we had for him later when we were on cycle was Rotten Chops, but I don't know if he knows that. I think we try to keep that quiet to ourselves. But he was the guy on my selection in Australia that told me I had to learn the Australian National Anthem, both verses, and that if I got a word wrong, that everybody's going to be punished. So yeah, hard case listening to these guys running around, yelling, trying to sing the words of the song.
Whoa, why are you singing it?
Smile while you're singing it. I think that's what he said. I'm going to go back.
Whoa, why are you
Yeah, that is what he barked at them. Smile while you're singing it. Oh, wow. I think I heard him say in time to the music, the staff. So that music that we're hearing must be what they had playing whilst they were supposed to be singing it with a smile on their face.
This might seem like a strange activity for young men to be undertaking on a nice sunny afternoon.
Sorry to cut him off. And that will start off like they have torsion bars and stuff now for some of the PT sessions. The weapon itself is nice and light, as I've mentioned, maybe only a couple of kilos. The torsion bars that they introduced, or at least they had during my selection over there, roughly around about 20 kilos each, thereabouts. So they're a bit different, which still isn't a massive amount when you think about it. And it's probably maybe about a meter or so in length, the bar itself. But it adds up. And it's very different to doing a military press with a weapon versus a bar. That's not to say it's harder. It's just, yeah, it's interesting. They likely didn't have those types of implements, let's call them, in 1984. But no doubt they had other ways to make life miserable.
So we are making the punishment fit the crime. Firstly, they did have dirty weapons. And secondly, if they're coming to the regiment, they should know the regimental chant. And what better time to learn it than now?
I definitely didn't know it. And I still don't know it today, which is not very good. I should probably spend a bit more time and learn that. But it's not like it was something once you got into the regiment, at least not in my time. It's not something the lads were belting out each week or month or year or whatever. I don't even think I heard it again until I was helping out on a selection course over there. So, yeah, I definitely didn't know it before I went there.
Beautiful! Get back in the hut! I must claim my weapon! 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 I must claim my weapon!
I must clean my weapon. It's like writing lines out, in school. Those that know, I definitely had to write out lines a few times while I was in school. But that's the physical version of writing out lines.
In the regiment, all members of all ages and ranks continue to undertake physical fitness training and annual fitness tests. On the selection course, I like all the staff to take part in as many of the physical activities as possible to show the blokes that it isn't as hard to do as they think it is. In fact, we've got a 50-year-old staff sergeant. He's in there somewhere helping the guys along, and he actually did his selection course when he was in his late 40s.
Wow, did you hear that? They got a 50-year-old in there who you just spoke about. And he also said that he did his selection in his, what did he say? In his 40s? Mid to late 40s? Let me just go back.
In fact, we've got a 50-year-old staff sergeant. He's in there somewhere helping the guys along, and he actually did his selection course when he was in his late 40s.
When he was in his late 40s, team, like I've got a number of questions and queries from people that said, can you do selection when you're 40? Can you do selection when you're in your late 40s? Well, I don't know what it is now, right? Like times have changed. Obviously, this is over 40 years ago, 41 years ago, thereabouts. And yeah, the landscape's changed, the requirements, etc. So I don't know if you can still apply for selection when you're 40 or mid-40s or late 40s, as this guy just said. But he said they got a 50-year-old staff sergeant who was running in amongst that group of men that we just saw, who applied and passed the Australian selection in his late 40s. That's awesome.
Complete your resection and your navigation data sheet. If you have any problems throughout,
In this opening phase of the course, teaching plays an important role. Every man must possess a good standard of weapon handling, communications. Later in the course, his life may depend on this, first aid, and the key to the SAS regiment's battle role, navigation.
Have a look at your map, the marginal information there, determine the accurate age of the map, all right? And then once you've determined the accurate age, what would you do?
The accurate age, then I'd multiply by the years, like
the annual change, multiplied by the annual change, all right?
1744, 45.
Meanwhile, the runners are coming in on that first timed run. The ones you see here, who have finished well ahead of time, will receive quite a boost to their morale, while the ones that come in well behind time, or behind time, will have their morale shaken. And they'll have trouble raising their confidence to complete later activities, especially.
Pretty interesting seeing this version of selection, and I'll probably look to wrap it up. Oh, no, I'll let it keep going for a little bit longer. It's nearly 30 minutes. Guys with shirts off, different coloured, some with singlets, some with t-shirts. You know, when you're in the unit, like that's pretty much how you're just wearing normal civilian attire. But military, you have a PT kit. I forget what the dress code is called, but you've got all these different dress numbers or codes that they use. You know, dress 3A, 3B, service dress, whatever it is, blah blah blah. And then PT kit, we just refer to it as PT kit. And everybody, at least when I went through, everybody had to have the same PT kit, same color t-shirt, same color shorts. You knew who the candidates were. Here, when you look at that, I don't know who the candidates are and or who the staff are, because everybody seems to be wearing a hodgepodge or summer kicking around with no shirts on. There was none of that happening on selection, not in NZ and not in Australia when I went through anyway. But again, just an example, another example of those iterations of selection, looking to adapt and adjust things and tweak things where they feel it's necessary.
As those that failed have to do this activity again. But it's not as simple as that. The fact is that we're looking for the guy that puts in 100% effort all the time, whether he finishes 2 or 3 minutes ahead of time or finishes 2 or 3 minutes behind time. We know in that case he's going to be trainable and that he's going to be trustworthy in time of combat.
It's interesting. Only that they're looking at that time with regards to what they're looking for the people that put in the effort, whether they come in under time or overtime. What I can say during my time, and I'll use this to wrap it up, it's just on 30 minutes now, is that if you failed a serial or a scenario or an activity, I should say, that was timed, say the 3.2. I've mentioned this before. I only recall hearing that we had 16 minutes to complete it. I didn't hear that we had 16:30. When I've gone back and then seen some of the old photo clips that my wife had, newspaper clippings that my wife kept or took photos of. We don't have the paper clips anymore. Or if we do, we don't know where they are. I read on there and it said that we had 16 minutes 30 to complete it for the 3.2. So I didn't know that. All I heard was 16 minutes. And for the longest time, it's sort of believed that that's the time that we had. So when I came in at 15:55, and that was at a mad sprint for the last few meters, because I think I heard 15:48 or something like that. And I was like, holy heck. So I needed to run as hard as I could and felt like I just scraped in. Well, I did just scrape in. But then when I read that, the write-up about it and it said 16:30, I was like, oh, well, I didn't do as bad as I thought. But still, I know that if I had come in overtime, like, you weren't able to stay on the selection. You weren't, that was you done. Like, thanks, but you failed to meet the requirements. You can reapply and come back again and try again. And next time, turn up in better shape. So that's how it was when I went through. I know of another guy, I won't mention his name, but he was an ex-Kiwi badged Kiwi SAS guy who then went over to Oz, and he was there by the time I got there. He was already in the regiment, had been there, must have been for a few years by the time I got on to cycle. And from what I understand, he failed his 3.2. So failed his 3.2. That was him done. And then he went back and then passed it the next time around. So again, there's another example of people, not everybody passing the selection the first time. And in my opinion, just because you pass one country's selection doesn't mean you'll pass another country's selection course. Like that's what I think is so good about, well, at least at the time anyway, I'm not sure how it is now. That's what I think is so good about the need to go through the selection for the country that you're looking to apply for. I don't think there should be a special deal or handshake or contract or whatever. I think there's a lot to be said for going through that selection. And as an example, the guy that failed, that was a badge member in NZ, that failed his first one, only failed on the 3.2. That was it. He went away, Lincoln, made sure that he trained from what I understand, and then went back and smashed it, went through the whole selection, passed and got there, like I said. So this is cool, man. I mean, this one isn't so much a stroll down memory lane for me. It's more of a, and it's not a comparison either. It's more of a, man, it's interesting what they did back then, how they did things. Looking at, I expect, the facilities to be older, the equipment to not be as good, etc., etc. That's a given as far as when I'm looking at this and reacting. I'm just really enjoying reacting, listening to some of the words spoken by the directing staff, and interested in the fact that the directing staff's faces and the candidates' faces, nothing's blurred out. So, I suppose there wasn't the type of technological threat that there is in these days, I'm guessing. But still interesting nonetheless. I thought there might have still been some sort of just maybe not blurring out faces, but maybe taken from the neck down of candidates and directing staff and that sort of thing, with maybe one or two head staff members whose faces might be shown. But anyway, that's not the case, and I don't mind. So pretty cool to see, and I'm sure it must be really must bring back a lot of good memories for those soldiers that went through the selection over 40 years ago. So if you made it this far, man, thank you very much for your time, mate. I'm looking forward to doing more reactions to this, and I will do that over the coming days. But in the meantime, the message is the same. Anybody going through any dark times, difficulties, challenges, I just encourage you to keep turning up, keep staying in the fight, put one foot in front of the other, take one day at a time. I promise you things can do and will get better. Just got to stay as consistent as you can, stay disciplined, and where necessary, just be patient. I promise you things will get better. As always, go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, there's a big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all.